What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Assemble Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Jones. Whether I'm hitting the trails, training for an ultramarathon, or pushing my limits in the gym strength training, I've always been fascinated by what drives us to perform at our best. This podcast is for everyone, from the serious endurance, strength, or hybrid athlete to the outdoor enthusiast who wants to live life to the fullest. I believe that peak performance is an assembly of physical training, mental fortitude, emotional health, and social support. Whether you're training for a sport or viewing life itself as the ultimate athletic event, join me in redefining limits and living a life full of challenges and adventure. Let's get into today's podcast. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today we've got Devin Alexander on the podcast. He is a former D1 linebacker, and now he works with youth coaching football and sees himself more as kind of a life coach as well, not just a football coach. And so I wanted to have him on today. He's got a super great mindset, and he's got a lot of awesome advice from things he's learned and people he's had as mentors and learned from. So he's got an awesome mindset, a lot of awesome stuff to share. Devin and I actually worked together in the Navy. I haven't seen him in a while now since I'm not in there anymore. But we used to talk all the time about all the stuff we're going to talk about today. He's super real, and I'm super excited to have him on. So, Devin, how's it going?
It's going good, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate the kind words too, former. Make sure that's an emphasis on former.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I can't move like I used to.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, we've had a lot of great discussions, so I'm excited. Could you start out, maybe just give people a background on you've played football from a young age, so kind of how football shaped your early life and that progress into, elementary school, middle school, high school, into D1 athletics?
So, well, I really didn't start out playing football super, super young. Most people start off at the elementary school level, 4 or 5 years old. I started off in 8th grade. So for me, I was a little bit behind the ball, right? Growing up in the inner city, St. Louis, it's kind of hard to have, a stable income when you come from a single parent home. So for me, the way that I found football was kind of unique. I drove a bike up to the middle school that I was going to at the time, and ran across their practice and told them I wanted to play right then and there. It was free. So it wasn't like no too organized thing back in the day. Like you got Pop Warner and all these other leagues and stuff with these kids now. When I was coming up, that wasn't in St. Louis, and so that's really how I came across football. As far as how it, shaped my reality and how everything went. Football was the first place where I really, understand the grasp of discipline, and that, doing your portion of what a job takes is what keeps the train going forward. Without, your piece, which we call the 1%, right? You got the 1%, which is your job. If you don't do your job, then the team takes a hit. I understood that you weren't alone anymore. You know what I mean? Like you got to figure this out for the common cause, which is the team to win. That's where team mentality came in. Discipline, mindset, attitude, everything like that plays a part into how you respond to life. And so that's what football did for me as I got older and got more mature in the game. So think about it like this. If you started at 5 working out, whether that's your running, your training, or anything like that, rather than 8th grade at 13, 14 years old, that time frame that you missed, you like playing catch up the whole time. So my work ethic was also had to be phenomenal. I'm playing against people who've been playing for 6 years, 7 years.
Yeah, I think that's something super powerful about sports at that age. And what we're going to get into, like what you're doing now with the kids. But I even know a lot of other coaches that have worked in college and they've gone back to work in high schools because they feel like they have a bigger impact on the trajectory of these kids' lives.
And I do also agree with that. Eventually I want to get to high school. Like you said, I coach kids. I coach 11-year-olds now. I started off with 10-year-olds, but the passion and, the obsession with the game is much more prevalent at that age because, they say kids are sponges, and they are. So the persona that you give, the mindset that you give them, the details that you give them, the discipline that you give them, these things are not just things that they can attack in the game of football. These are things they can attack in the game of life. You know what I mean? So and a lot of these kids come from single parent homes. The kids I coach, troubled backgrounds. So not only are you a coach, you're a dad, and you're a life coach. So you're teaching these kids how to not self-destruct when it comes to a time frame when they get to our age. By the time you listen to certain music and listen to, or, taking these people as mentors or people they look up to in the wrong way. So we really not only, that's why I say I'm more of a life coach than a football coach. There's so much stuff that we're teaching them outside of football.
Yeah, I mean, it's super powerful, and I definitely want to get into all of that specifically. I want to give a little bit more background as to where you've learned these lessons, because obviously
Oh yeah, yeah,
you have to learn them somewhere. So
yeah.
how was football going through middle school and high school? You mentioned you were kind of behind the curve. How early did you start to feel like, hey, I'm pretty good at this, I might be able to do this in college?
Honestly, I had that confidence going into the sport. Back playing backyard football, you could always tell the guys that you was playing with, they'd be like, man, you'll be good on the team. You're super athletic. So I always had the confidence. So my first year, middle school football was a joke. It was an absolute joke. We had hand-me-down jerseys. Equipment was handed down. You know what I'm saying? Everything would run down. It wasn't until my the end of my 8th grade year where my actual high school, who ended up being my high school coach, 2 of those guys came to one of my 8th grade games and stopped me after the game and talked to me and my pops. And they were like, we want you to come to our varsity camp. Mind you, I'm 13 years old. At the time, I go that following summer, I'm at a varsity football camp playing against dudes who's 16, 17 years old, who's seniors and juniors in high school. Right then and there, and I was making plays in that camp, in that tournament, doing playing with them older kids. I knew right then and there I had a shot to do whatever I wanted to do with it, as long as I put my mind to it.
Yeah, that must have been a very big sense of belonging too. You mentioned that already. Like,
Yeah,
oh, hey, I really do belong here. I'm pretty good at this.
yeah, I belong on this stage, right? So think about it. You start off in one year, you see the ups and downs. You don't win a game. Mind you, my 8th grade year, we were winless. We were 0-9. In 2009, we were 0-9. Like it was bad. It was a joke. And then these coaches come to you who've been playing, coaching the sport for a long time, played sports at the, college level. And they tell you as a kid, after your first year, we want you to come to varsity camp. And you getting ready to go to high school and play for these guys. So my freshman year, I'm at varsity. This is my second year of football. So it was all up here for real. So I definitely felt like I belonged. I felt like I was the man. Before I even went to school, I was on varsity.
Yeah, so really your football career in high school, you were the guy, right? So you were pretty much already looking at like, hey, I'm gonna probably do this for a long time into college even.
Yeah, for sure. I had, I never really had the aspiration of going to college. I just wanted to play football my whole life. And then when I finally got to the sport, I realized that I could actually get to college doing this. And my drive came from just wanting to get out of St. Louis, seeing all that negative stuff and seeing people around me who you love struggle. I felt like I was the one who was gonna get my family out of the mess we were in. So for me, it was more of a changing the family history rather than just doing it for my personal self. I football, don't get me wrong, I loved football, but it was so much more deeper than just football at the time. But it wasn't until college where football became football for me.
Yeah, that's huge. I love the purpose there. Very, very purpose driven, which is shines through in every conversation we have with everything you do. So could you talk a little bit about the transition from high school to college and how that went for you from an athletic standpoint, but also just like a personal standpoint?
So athletically, let's check that first. Athletically, I was the guy in high school, right? The year before me, my junior year, not my senior year, the junior year, we had some dogs on our team. Don't get me wrong, we had some dogs. But even then, with them being on the team, I was still the go-to guy. You know what I'm saying? So they end up having a guy. Well, I was splitting time at some point, and we had and a guy Brandon Brown. That's his name. He was pretty good. He was pretty good, but we were stagnant as an offense whenever he would get the ball. And a lot of people would say it was favoritism and things like that, but athletically, I was better than a lot of the guys that I was playing against. I was more gifted and I also worked harder. So then my senior year, I was the guy in Missouri, not on my team in Missouri. It was now don't get me wrong, it was a bunch of guys who were ranked higher than me and things like that. So I don't want to make it seem like I was the best out of the state of Missouri. I wasn't, but I was one of those guys. When I got to college, I realized real quickly, you are not that guy yet. They come to be there. Like these are grown men with kids who have a sense of purpose also, who want to be champions. These dudes are like 2 or 3 years in the weight room, faster than you, stronger than you, bigger than you. The game is way slower to them than it is to you. So you get there and it's like during headlights, like, bro, what is going on? So athletically, it was crazy. Physically, right? That was the other one? Was that the other one you said?
I'm just like personally, because you're
Personally.
now out of St. Louis, right?
Yeah, personally, the game changed personally a lot. Imagine being like spoon fed like a baby, right? You ain't really walking, kind of crawling, stumbling here and there when you're trying to stand up. And then you get to college and it's like you have to run. You just started, you was just getting spoon fed. Now you need to get up and run. So there was like that in between was when I realized that the me playing as a kid was more important then than it was in high school. Because in high school, everything makes sense because they tell you what it is you need to know. They tell you this, oh, this is the play we run. This is what we're looking for. This is what this. You get to college, they do the same thing, but they give you a book. They give you a binder. These are your plays, learn them. And if you don't know these plays, you're not playing. So instead of telling you this is the play we're running and then this is what we're looking for, they give you a book, you read the book, you learn the plays for install one, which is day one. You learn those installs. And then once you learn the installs, then they teach you what you're looking for from the install that you learned on the big screen when we go in our meetings. So it was like the learning curve and the knowledge curve personally is what ate me up in my first couple of years of college. I wasn't ready. I was not ready at all because I did not understand the game. I had to be taught the game of football. That's why I said athletically, I was the guy. Personally, I was the guy in high school. I didn't have to do worry about any of that. But when everybody caught up to me when I got to college, it was crazy because now IQ matters, knowledge matters. Small things like the sideline at the 12th man, not the 11, it's 11 people on the field. The 12th man is the sideline. Certain things like small tips like that you don't learn if you don't have the right coaches or played long enough to understand his forced experience. That was a real good question.
Yeah, it's the premise of what got you there won't keep you there
Yeah,
or get you
yeah,
to the next step. Do you find that's a pretty common struggle that people have at that level is transitioning?
for sure. Also, a lot of people, you ask me, you say, purpose is what's important to me. Even when we have our regular conversation when we're at work, your purpose, your sense of purpose and what you do it for has to be very strong because the temptation of girls, drinking, falling, all that starts to set in, especially for a kid who's red shirted and ain't playing, gray shirt, red shirt, who's not playing. That sense of purpose of what you do it for has to be rooted in you. Because if it's not, it's going to get pulled up and you're going to get mixed up in all this other stuff that don't got nothing to do with football. And coaches are like in it, like coaches are just like uh, detectives. They find everything, especially on a big campus. So you're not really getting away with anything. It's just a matter of if they choose to ignore it or not. You're not getting away with anything. You feel like you're getting away, you're not. So if your purpose is not there, then there's really nothing that's going to ground you to being in football or at school. Because then your grade slip, with our girls, you're chasing everything but the goal of football.
So you mentioned red shirted. Could you, for the people that don't know football, explain what that means?
Red shirt is where you go in and either you're not mentally, physically, or emotionally prepared to help the team in your first year of being there. So what they do is they determine this either before you get there or while you're there in the summer workouts. So if your knowledge is not up to par, physicality and just level of understanding, and all these things that play a part of being on the field, if that's not up to par, they take you and put you through an entire year of getting you ready. And that year doesn't count on the field, but it does count in the classroom. So technically you'll be a sophomore in the school, but a freshman on the field, a redshirt freshman on the field. That year doesn't count towards football. So you get an extra year of football, but you go up a level in school.
Right, because you have a maximum amount of years you can play at the college level, right?
Yes. Yes,
Is
you
is
got
that 4 or
it's technically 5, but it can be pushed to 6 based on a medical red shirt. Now that's how I ended up getting my master's. I ended up getting red shirted at Toledo when I played there, and then when I transferred, I ended up getting a medical hardship with medical hardship, which granted me another year. And so the red shirt plus my um, medical red shirt was gave me 6 years, and that's how I ended up getting my master's for free. That's why I always when I tell you that. That's my first time telling you that. That's why I always tell you when I got my master's, it was a blessing because I wasn't supposed to.
so I do want to ask about the masters, but one step back, the transition from high school to college football, the workload also increases not just academically, but practice wise as well, right?
But yeah, workload does definitely transition because, when you on a high school campus, everything is right there. Everything is right in front of you. So you get right out of school, you come out of school, you walk down to whatever facility you have there that houses your equipment and all that. You put your equipment on, you walk out to your practice field. So for college, workload is completely different because you'll wake up at 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, you got weights. Your first class at 8:15. So you done worked out, ran, went to class. From class, then you go to another class. Then you go to, maybe 3 classes in the morning. Then you go to practice at 2, where you got to do film, right? From film, then you go to the field. From the field, you go to class if you got a night class, and then you go home and you rinse and repeat.
So with that increased workload, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's kind of an understanding from people that aren't in this world
Right.
that football players oftentimes have take easier classes because of the workload or easier degrees. Is that true or is that kind of a misnomer?
I think that's case dependent, right? I'm not going to say that all football players are in that category because there are guys who take on engineering and who also take on like, physics and things like that, like these big major STEM degrees, cybersecurity and things like that. There's also guys who go to college not knowing what they want to do with themselves. So they kind of just take on anything. And there's also those, mass communications and what's the other one? Criminal justice degrees. Those guys that's due to mass communication and criminal justice, 9 times out of 10, they stay within some doing football, whether they go play on in the NFL or they go back and coach at the college level. Most of those guys who do that, yes, they are doing it because they don't really care for school. They just want to play ball or be around the game. The guys who go choose STEM degrees and all these degrees that really matter are the ones who know that they don't have a future in football. They did football in college or high school to get to college for free. And then at college, if they were to be the guy, then that's fine. But if not, I understand that this is my plan B. Those are the guys who plan ahead.
So you mentioned before you weren't even planning on going to college, and then you saw that you had a way into college, and then you mentioned a master's. It's kind of a big jump in our conversation. So can you explain kind of what you got your degree in, and like, since you now had it in at college, were you very passionate about it, or like how did that work mentally for you?
So once I got the go ahead in my head, like, okay, I know I can do this for college. Okay, so let's think about it. So personally, how it affected me, I went in thinking about not going to the NFL initially, right? In the back of your mind, you play ball. All athletes think about going to the league, but I was trying to set myself up for a future in case that didn't happen. I'm a numbers guy, so I understand statistics of not being able to make it. So I went in and bounced around multiple different degrees. I started off, in dentistry because I wanted to be orthodontist. Then I bounced around to business where I wanted to do like supply chain management. I bounced into public health and then I also bounced into nursing. And I kind of stuck with nursing for a while. And then, it kind of got to a point where I had to choose football or clinicals and I chose football because football was paying the bills. I never really took school serious, even in high school. I never really took it serious because all I wanted to do was play football. I was one of those guys. But over the course of my college career, even my high school career, I did a lot of community service. And I seen how my environment impacted me and the people around me. And I wanted to be able to change that in kids. So I ended up changing to get a general studies degree. And it's also why I got my master's in education administration. It wasn't until I got hurt the second time when I realized, okay, football is definitely not going to happen for me, right? Imagine being a junior and you seeing all these these NFL coaches coming to your practice to scout your teammates. You talking to them, shaking their hands and stuff like that. Like you around these guys, when you see your dream right there in your hands and you get hurt twice back to back. It wasn't until I got hurt the second time that I realized, okay, I need to take this serious. School means something now. So that's when I cut the light switch on and started to pay attention more in school. And I wanted to be somebody for the kids that told them or showed them that school matters too. Because like I said, where I come from, certain things don't matter to you. It's all about the influence around you. And I wanted to go back and be a superintendent to my community. And that's why I got my master's in education administration. So that's where it came from personally. But it
So you
wasn't,
mentioned,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned getting hurt. So could you explain kind of what happened there? And before you got hurt, did you have a future? Were you potentially up to get drafted? How did that work?
I wouldn't say drafted, but I definitely had a very, very huge shot at getting into somebody's camp. Now like I said, I'm a realist. I'm gonna keep real with you. I was good. But I wasn't that good in college to um, get drafted. I did put up some numbers and was on a team with a bunch of guys who had been drafted, been to the NFL, or were going there. And getting hurt was mentally the hardest thing that I had ever gone through at that point in my life. You know what I mean? That was literally the hardest thing I had gone through. And mentally, it affected me way much more than I expected it to. So I ended up breaking my foot twice. First time, I broke my foot twice. And that one was kind of like this is what it is. We would come back from this, but I tried to come back too early and I broke it again in the spring. So I ended up having to sit out an entire year with a Jones fracture in my left foot. And that one was I still had a year and a half, 2 years left to play after I did that. So I wasn't really worried about it or focused on it or anything like that. So I ended up playing a year and then I go back and I turn my tricep off the bone. And that's when I realized, yeah, this football thing is over. The broken foot one changed me, right? The broken foot one changed me. That's where I started to understand the game. You know what I mean? Like I had been learning the game, but to see it from a coach's perspective, from the sideline, wearing a headset, being treated like a coach, talking about the ins and outs of why we install certain things, the X's and O's, all of that played a part in the development of me as a coach. And I never understood that until later on down the road. But when I broke my foot, the game changed. It slowed down. I learned, I understood the game. I was enthusiastic to get back because I had ended up that season where I broke my foot. I had a teammate named Zach Hall, played professional rugby now. He was the greatest linebacker at the FCS level. In all of FCS, he was the greatest linebacker across all 100 schools. And I watched his process. Now, he was the most IQ best. He was like the most knowledgeable linebacker I had ever seen in my life. He was the most coachable person I had ever seen in my life. So to watch him do his process of how he goes to study, mind you, we live together. So even while I'm hurt, I'm watching him study. I'm watching him be a student of the game, learning, picking up what he putting down, like certain things like that. So when I was ready to go back, I was I was on a whole nother level than I had ever been. I thought it was gonna be my best year, and then I ended up trying my tricep off the bone. But I tore my tricep off the bone. That one was the one where I had to really dig deep and become something else for the team because it was over for me. I had knew right then and there it was over for me. Football was over. I was never supposed to play football again, but through sheer determination and will, I ended up playing the last 2 games of the season
S-
where
s-
we were
Go ahead.
champions that year. We were champions that year, but the mental aspect of the tricep was how we talked about at work where we say people can't let go of the sport. That was that year for me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask. The identity aspect. We're coming off a podcast with a sports psychologist on injury, and so we
Oh,
talked about identity there. And then another podcast with a physical therapist who works with people in rehab, and we've talked about identity there. So this is a perfect, third time example of, you play football, you have it as such a big part of your identity, and you mentioned like getting a huge sense of belonging from it when you were younger. And so that must have been very difficult to kind of have that ripped away from you because it was such a big part of your life. Could you maybe speak to that transition?
Oh, for the transition, it was definitely hard because, like I said, you see all these coaches, you're shaking their hand, you're getting business cards and all that. Took the Wonderlic test as a junior, as an up and coming junior going into your senior year. So you seeing all of this happen, and to tear your tricep or such a have a like such a traumatic injury when it happens, you know what I mean? It literally changes everything in your life at that up until that point. So this is the goal. This is what you're doing. This is how we get in there. This is how we get in our family. This difference. And to have that stripped, the transition from player back to who you are as a regular person, you know what I mean? Was one of the most, you know, unthinkable things that you ever think you had to go through, but also painful, right? Painful because your dream is stripped. It's taken right out of your hands from something for something you can't even control. So for me, the transition was I knew then and right then and there that no matter what had happened, I wanted to stay near the game. And, I've all from that point on, I always wanted to coach. And I sat down with my college coach, and my college coach told me, he said, your impact for this game wasn't to play it as long as you were supposed to play it or wanted to play it. Your impact now comes from this chair that I'm sitting in. When you leave there, go coach. I'm not saying do it right away. Take some time. I said, Coach, I'm not doing that. He said, take some time because I know where you at right now. You probably mad at the game. You probably hate it now because you feel like it took everything from you, but you're not realizing everything that it gave you. It gave you an opportunity. It changed your life. It got you out of the hood. It did everything for you that you're not taking heed to. Now give back to it. And that's exactly why I coach now.
At
So
this point,
go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, at this point, were you done with your master's as well then?
Yes, I was about to finish it. I was about to finish it. I was closing up on the back half of my degree, and my coach, to help me out, he, paid for some things, got the school to pay for some things that I technically wasn't supposed to do, but he pulled some strings for me to get finished the master's.
So you mentioned wanting to go back and be an administrator. Was that the plan at this point?
Yes, I wanted to go back to be a superintendent or administrator, like a athletic director, to help the kids have a better environment, a better, curriculum. Because I felt like I didn't really learn anything in high school. Like I said, how was I able to go through the motions? I wasn't dumb, but how was I able to go through the motions of high school, get to college, and then struggle a little bit in the beginning without all these teachers not knowing that I wasn't on the same level as most of these other kids? How was that possible? Because they were pushing me through because of the football aspect. Now that's fine. Don't get me wrong. We do go through a lot as athletes, but there's no way you should be bending certain things to allow kids to move on or get past your grasp as a teacher, going to the next level, not ready. Preparation is the key to success. Prepare me the right way so I can be successful in the long run. You know what I mean? So that's why I wanted to go back into the high school to change certain things like that.
Yeah, Hannah's a teacher, and so that unfortunately does happen. Kids get pushed through for one reason or another when they aren't ready. So it's definitely a place where a lot of value can be added. So what did you do after you got your master's? Football was over, and you were kind of in this transitional period.
Like I said, that transition was hard to go from football to back and being a regular person again. So what I ended up doing, like I said, I didn't want to go to a school right away because I had a job offer as a, assistant principal, kind of a shadowy type of person at my high school to go back and help. They was trying to give back to me as much as I gave back to the school. When all the money that you get from people coming to watch you play and stuff like that, they kind of wanted to look out for me right after I was done. And I wasn't in the mental space or headspace to go be around high school. Mind you, I would have been from the seniors, I would have been maybe 5 years, 6 years older than them. So I'm not too far from them, trying to tell them, what to do. And with the mindset that I was in, the dark place that I was in, losing football at that time, I still hadn't gotten over it. So I ended up, joining the military for to be around the same structure, the same discipline, you know what I mean? Same routine. And that's why I joined the military. I had never thought about joining the military. I just, one day I got up like, I need to do this. Otherwise, I'm going to end up back in St. Louis doing something I don't want to do or somewhere I don't want to be.
Yeah, yeah, super powerful, and obviously that's where we met. So, I guess has that been a helpful thing for you? You don't have to go super in depth with it if you don't want. I know, like, you gotta be
You talking
careful
about the
about.
Navy? You mean the Navy?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, don't get me wrong. We ain't gonna talk too much about the negative of the Navy. It is what it is. But the positive side about it, I had a stable job. I learned a skill set that's very, very important when I get out. A skill set that you can't just go learn and be good at on a regular basis. I now have a sense of family and purpose in the kids that I coach, the lives that I'm changing there. Uh, Financially, put me in a better place than I was when I was in college and before that. So I would say the Navy also, without even with its cons, there's way more pros that I've gotten from the Navy than there is cons. I haven't even told you. Well, I did tell you this. I'm getting my master's, a second master's in information, cybersecurity, information assurance. Same thing you got yours in, pretty much. You know what I mean? So I couldn't, as much as I want to complain about the Navy, I got to tell you, I got to say that it has been good to me for sure.
yeah, definitely. So, when did you start to entertain the idea of, hey, like maybe my coach was right, and I could provide value by coaching others?
Realistically, when I first got out of boot camp, when I went to Florida, being in A school, we can't really do much. You in new session status. They don't really let you off the base or let you have much free time. You in school. That's what it is. It wasn't until I got to Virginia and I, started to have free time. I kept telling myself I wanted to coach, I wanted to coach, I wanted to coach. But I ended up coming up here with a girlfriend that I had found down there in Florida while she was on vacation. She was in Tennessee, I was in Virginia. We were making it work long distance. I'm telling you all this because it at some point it's gonna link up to the story, end of the story. So, me and her ended up not working, but I wanted to coach while I was with her. I kept telling her, hey, I want to coach, I want to coach, I want to go coach. I'm really thinking about coaching. And to her, it was too much time for her away from her. No, I don't want you to do that. I moved here for you. You need to be here with me. It is what it is. So well, all right, cool. I put it on the back burner. That ended up not working. And the pain that I had got from that relationship forced me to go find an organization to coach for. And I came across the most, when I say life saving at that point, organization, man, to this day, like I've been coaching with them for 2 years now. That is family. I just went to Thanksgiving dinner. That is family. So when I say it's everything about football has been such a blessing to me, even the injuries has been such a blessing.
And the kids you work with are getting the same sense of like community that you got when you were younger, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard though, Jones, man. It's kind of hard. They different. So we got to find new ways to coach. They challenge us in so many ways. They learn different. They think different. They have access to so much more stuff than we did when we was kids. It's and it's hard because that hunger, that aggression that we had when we were younger. Not saying that you understand this, but where I come from is the same as where they come from. It's just a different state, different city. It's the same type of environment though. And that environment, what I seen going on is what caused me to be so hungry to leave. For them, all they care about is TikTok, YouTube, and all this type of stuff. So connecting with them is so much different than it would be if they were like focused. They could just stay focused on one thing at a time. Even in our games when I'm coaching them, their focus is so hard to maintain. You teach a kid tackle, 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 fundamentals all day long. You get in the game and that focus that you're supposed to have is not there. Like I tell them all the time, laser focus on the hip, track in their hip. It can shake you with all this funny movement and all that. But if you focus on one point, on the inner hip that's closest to you, you will never miss a tackle. You will never miss a tackle. And I tell them all the time, and they don't, this focus is different. So I wouldn't say that they are bad. They challenge us in so many ways to learn and understand them of how to get through to them because everybody's not the same. And that's also one of the impactful and fun things about coaching. Trying to understand each kid and figure out what motivates them, what drives them. Like I came out $150 one time because I told them, hey, we gonna play this game. I'm a defense coordinator. We gonna play this game. They don't score. Everybody get their own pizza. I never did it again. I promise you that. Never did it again. But they motivated them. You know what I mean? It was enough to motivate them enough to move and play it like we wanted them to play with that passion.
Yeah, that's what I say too from the athletes I work with is the call it the art of coaching. Like the science, is needed, like the understanding of why you do things,
Yeah.
but the art is what makes it fun and what makes it impactful because everybody's different, everybody communicates differently. So, you and I could tell the same person the same thing. They might actually understand it from you, whereas they wouldn't from me just because the communication style is different. And I think that's what makes coaching worthwhile and what I enjoy as the
That,
people aspects.
that is
You mentioned the guy you played with in college being coachable. Could you explain now you work with kids as a coach. Can you explain a little bit more of what it means to be coachable and like why that is a good quality to have?
to be coachable, it takes a lot. And it might be a lot of big things. It might be a lot of small things. I think it's case dependent on the person that you're coaching. Now, Zach, in this case, he wasn't the most physical guy. He wasn't the most athletic guy. He was smarter than everybody on the field. He was smart. He was the smartest person on the field, and he was the most coachable. And when I say coachable, every technique that he was taught, he perfected it. He perfected it. He turned his weaknesses into strengths. So every aspect of his game was well rounded. That's what I mean by coachable. He had no weaknesses. Even if he was slow, he knew his angle had to be different because he had to make this tackle. Because I ain't the fastest guy, but I know if I take this angle and track this hip, I'm gonna get to you eventually before you get to this yardage that I need you not to get to. You see what I'm saying? He was one of those kids where coach would tell you, hey, go out there and jump this high. He go out there and jump that high. Okay, now do it on one leg. Okay, I'll do it on one leg. Opposed to me, hey, go out here and jump that high. Well, I'm jumping that for. What you doing that for? Hey, what's the angle? What we doing that for? Oh no, coach, don't worry about it. I'll figure out a different way to do it. Right? That's how most people think. How do we make this easier for ourselves? But for him, it was like, how can I do it how he want to do it, but add my spin to it also? That way we both getting satisfied by this outcome. You see what I'm saying? That's what made
Yeah.
him coachable. He could use what you was telling him and implement it in what he was doing and make whatever he was doing that much better because he had two brains on a thing rather than one. That's what made him so coachable. So it would got to the point where we would watch film and I'm listening to him, talk. And mind you, this is dude's younger than me. I'm more athletic. I'm way stronger, way more of a physical specimen than him, but he was way better than me on the field because of his mind. We would be watching the film and he'll be like, mind you, he'll watch the play. Boom, the play happened. He'll rewind it. What'd you see? Shit, they just ran the ball. No, watch this lineman. Look at his hands. Oh, his hands are light. He's finna pull. He pulled. Watch the next play. Boom. What'd you see? His hands light. Play. He pulled. Oh, okay. So when you see him on his hands like that light, what you thinking? Oh, we finna pull. We finna transition. We finna slide over. We finna go downhill. That's how we about to do. That's how his brain worked. Even now, when we have certain conversations, his perspective is enticing. Just like how you be like, man, your perspective is most of it come from him. I give a lot of the glory to him. He changed my mindset watching him prepare for football.
Yeah, you've mentioned a few times the IQ or the like smarts aspect of football when you got to college and
Yeah,
how important it was. And then you mentioned earlier you use the phrase game of life.
yeah,
And I see that with everything we talk about, everything has a deeper value. So now you coach these kids, and I know from talking to you that it's football, but it's about life. You mentioned that being a life coach.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna finish.
Have you seen the movie Coach Carter?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think I've been thinking about it because that's kind of a big undertone of that movie,
Yeah.
obviously. And so that didn't really add anything to the conversation. I was just curious if you'd seen it
Yeah.
because this reminds
Yeah.
me of it. But when working with these kids, like, how do you see? Clearly, you teach them football, and some of them will go on probably and play college football. Some of them probably won't. So, how do you see like your time with them, helping them with that game of life, and like how do you impart these lessons from sport to the rest of their lives?
So I do, and like I said, I'm not the smartest guy, but I take valuable lessons from everybody. You can learn from everybody. If you're the CEO of the company, the janitor can teach you something, and vice versa, right? So I never put myself on a pedestal, and I give all the glory to most of the people that I've come across who've given me these type simple messages and tools. So I want to, pay homage to them. But it's literally lessons that I've learned from other people, books, and things like that. And I just implement them into the way that I coach, right? Mimicking success is how you be successful. So for me, I'm gonna give you a couple of these things that I push out to them from other people that I've gotten from. Like I say, remember I told you E plus R equals O, right? The event plus the response equals the outcome. The event is, okay, we didn't win a game. Your response, you cry, you do a tantrum, you throw your helmet. The outcome of that is you don't play. Now let's take that further. The event is you get into it with another guy over a girl. Your response is to shoot. Your outcome is jail. Now you put away for the rest of your life. Press the pause button one time. Think about what it is you're gonna do or say, and then respond. And then your outcome will be different. You have to do stuff like that, right? The 1% rule that I talked about earlier. If you get 1% better, the team get 1% better based off your 1%. If you do your 1%, if you do your 1/11th on the field, the 11 gets better because of the one. Now, mind you, everybody got to do their 1 of 11, but just you doing your part is how you focus on what it is you need to do in your life and not worry about everybody else. It all ties into life. As like I always say, there's a million and one opportunities to be quiet. You should use every one of them. The human brain tells you, oh, I want to respond. I need to respond to this because he ain't right. Even if he is right or wrong, sometimes just be quiet. You win a lot of battles. It's a lot of um, it's a lot of importance in peace and being quiet. Let people win arguments. You don't have to win them all. You don't need to win every argument. It is what it is. Even if you know you are right, walk away from it. It is what it is. You got it. Appreciate it. You ain't always got to be right. Some people take that as weakness, losing the argument. There is no right or wrong in an argument, right? I mean, there can be, but most of the time, it's opinion based stuff. Nobody's opinion matters to you if you don't give it grace. You don't give it importance. It's just certain things like that. So those life lessons like that, the pause button, E plus R equals O, you know what I mean? Your 1/11th or your 1%. These are things that I'm teaching them every single day. Just like the laser focus on the hip is focusing on what it is to in your next task. The play happens, you focus on the hip. The hip is the thing that stops the play because he has the ball. If you can get this one task done, now the next task happens. Okay, we do this 3 times, our offense get the ball back. That's the task. Get the ball back to offense. Just simple stuff like complete the task like that. Focusing on one thing at a time, slowing things down, understanding certain concepts. That's why I say life coach rather than just a football coach. Because if you're just a football coach, I feel like you're failing. I feel like there's so much more that you could be doing that you're not doing. I feel like you're limiting yourself. I wouldn't say failing, that's a negative connotation. I would say you're limiting yourself into a box that you can outgrow easily. You got to get better to make the people around you and the people that you're pushing information to better.
Yeah, you're really creating a culture that will stick with some of these kids for a long time and really make a difference. Maybe even 10 years down the road. So, I mean, I'm sure that brings you a lot of like purpose to know that you're having that impact when you go have Thanksgiving with them or go to practice or games. I know you travel some as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. We went to North Carolina a couple times for playoffs and stuff like that. And then mind you, that's some of these kids' first time ever leaving the state, even the city.
That's super cool. So you coach 11-year-olds, right? Is it a range, or is it like 11 to 12, 10 to 11? Like how is the league set up?
We got a range from 5 all the way up to 13. Um, so it's Pop Warner, which is like world, not world, but in the United States of America, it's all over the nation. So they just adopted the unlimited rule. Unlimited rule says that you can be whatever weight you want to be as long as you are this age. And so what 11U, right? 11 years old, unlimited weight. As long as you are 11 before August 1st, you can play on 11U. Now, if you turn 12 in the middle of the season, that don't count against you. You see what I'm saying? So that's how it works. That's how the age group works. As long as you're that age before August 1st, when everything hits the fan, you're good to go.
You had mentioned before when we were talking to work a while ago, maybe like 6 months ago, that you decided to coach where you do because you felt you could have the biggest impacts on the kids you work with. If I'm remembering that correctly, could you talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit?
Yeah. The reason I chose Portsmouth, Virginia, the Portsmouth Bruins is what we're called. The reason I chose this area is because it gave me the most home feeling. I didn't want to go not be true to myself by going and coaching kids who grow up differently than me. I thought that coaching kids who came from the same type of background and environment as myself and come from some of the same struggles would be easier to connect with them, right? Because there's no coach of somebody that you can't connect with. If they don't trust you or believe in you at that age, you lost them, right? You lost them. They're not going to listen to you. They'll hear you, but they're not listening to what you're talking about because they don't believe you. They don't believe in you. They don't trust you. You have to gain the trust first for them to believe you. That's why it's such a personable thing, right? We talk about life coaching, we talk about football coaching. We also are dads out there too. You see what I'm saying? We're dads because some of those guys don't have them. So that I feel like that's the reason why I went out there and connected with those kids more because they remind me of me at that age, and they could easily be on the streets doing whatever they want to do.
Definitely. Yeah, that's super impactful. Hannah and I've had the conversation about just education in general, kind of the different areas you can teach as well. And it's the same conversation of like, where can I connect and have the most impact as me, who I am, not trying to be somebody that I'm not, which is something I've always valued about you. You're always very real and true to yourself. And yeah, we've had that conversation before, not putting on faces, just depending on where you're at, but really just showing up as yourself in every area of your life.
Call that the representative effect. Don't send a representative out there to talk to me. Take the mask off before you step in. You know what I mean? Ain't no need for that. Why not be unapologetically you? Who else? It's people out there who want to be you. So why not? Who better than you to be you? You know what I mean? That's how I see it.
Totally. I definitely agree. So, you're really having a really positive impact on these kids. I know before you've posted things because your league kind of is donation based sometimes for pads and stuff, some of the things you get. So is there anywhere people can go if they want to like support the Bruins with what you guys are doing?
We have a Facebook page, the official Portsmouth Bruins page. We also have an Instagram page at Portsmouth Bruins. We take donations when we can. So we do cash out, we do anything like that. We definitely need, equipment. You know what I mean? Like as far as like helmets, shoulder pads, field equipment for, most of that stuff we come out of pocket for. We need some stuff that we can train the kids with on the field. We got cones, we got ladders, but blocking dummies and things like that, like the tire for tackling, stuff like just small stuff like that that can help the organization in a great way. We not the most financially based organization, but we definitely do what we can with what we got, and we appreciate and accept anything that people willing to offer.
Yeah, I'll put that stuff down in the show notes too if anybody wants to check it out. Because you guys are doing some really good stuff.
When we get done, I'll send you the link to the Instagram and also send you the link to the Facebook page.
I was gonna message you and ask for them anyway, so that works. Do you have any other topics you wanted to touch on or anything else you wanted to get across before we kind of wrap up?
If you don't have anything else for me, I think I said enough. Need to get some water, man. My mouth's dry. Do a lot of
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, I feel you. Awesome. Well, yeah, it was great talking to you, and it was good to see you again. I haven't talked to you in a while, so we'll have to catch up again.
When you get the chance, man, I know you're busy with the young bull and the simple performance, man. I appreciate you having me on, but you get a chance, man. Let's go out and work out again like we did before. Let's go get something in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I have to tell the story real quick. We went to lift one time, and he's played college football, so very powerful. And I'm over here more low speed strength, just kind of trying to be strong. And he comes over under the bench and suicide grips the bar. So if you don't know what that is, it's where you don't grip the bar with your thumb under it. You bring it around the front. And football players train very powerful, so the weight moves very very fast. And he suicide grips the bar, and the bar comes down to his chest so fast that I thought it fell out of his hands, and I jumped. And he had 315 on the bar. I just threw it up like it was. I mean, it was heavy, but it was fast. I definitely the all the college years of training like showed to me in that moment. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my goodness, yeah.
Man, see you, Love Jones, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it was good to talk to you. And yeah, I definitely love your lessons. I think people will definitely get something from it. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoyed it, it would be helpful if you could leave a rating or a review on whatever platform you're listening on, as that helps us reach more audiences and get more awesome guests on. If you're interested in anything we talked about today, you can check the show notes for all links. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next podcast.